In today's Nintendo Switch 2 news, we're talking about the new model of the Pro Controller and what separates it from the first one according to brand new leaks. Former Nintendo employees respond to Samus Hunter's comments, and they think a lot like I do in my video that I posted yesterday, plus a very cool video showing what the magnetic Joy-Con will be like. So good morning, Mario, and good morning, Switch fans. The hunt continues. The journey continues closer and closer towards Switch 2, and I wanted to start you off with this video because I think it's pretty cool. This is a 3D printed Nintendo Switch reference model, but this is a video from Nerd Nest on YouTube, and basically they're showing how the Joy-Con are going to pop on and off. I just thought it was interesting to see a functioning model, and you can kind of watch this while I begin to touch and talk about the different topics that we're going to cover today. Things have continued to develop, things have continued to increase. We have a brand new person in the space commenting on the supposed new Pro Controller. And it's something that's very interesting because I kind of assumed the Pro Controller would stay the same, but of course Nintendo is going to want to sell you a new V2 version 2 Pro Controller to match the Switch 2. So we'll have to get into all the details of that. What's going on, everybody? It's Zach with SwitchForce. Hit that like button if you enjoy these videos. That is the joystick in the very center middle of the Joy-Con. It honestly doesn't look as bad. I think it only looked bad when it was in the split direct center of that steering wheel or the grip. For some reason, it just looked incredibly odd in that moment. But I want to begin by covering Samus Hunter. So yesterday, we talked about Samus Hunter's post that Nintendo was considering moving up their Switch 2 reveal and placing it before Donkey Kong Country Returns HD's release because of all the accessory leaks. And I mentioned how, to me, this threw a real wrench in Samus Hunter's credibility because I don't believe Nintendo operates that way. Well, looky here. We now have some comments from Kit and Krista, who used to work at Nintendo, talking about how they don't buy this either. This is some bull honky, and they're talking specifically about Samus Hunter's post. Nintendo may advance the next generation Switch reveal with an announcement that possibly could come before DK. And Krista says this is some bull honky. I think that this is the silliest thing I've ever heard. Yes, Nintendo does not do things like this. Kit says, yeah, that's not something they do. And then Krista says they would always stick to their guns and put out an announcement that is the most beneficial for the thing that they are trying to sell you. Meaning that they would absolutely do it their way and they would stick to their guns and they're not going to adjust. So this is really throwing a wrench into Samus Hunter's credibility, despite them having recent success with things like Xenoblade Chronicles X and MEO the Smiling Man. I continue to double down on what I said yesterday, which is I feel that their recent posts are just guesses, are just attention grabbing, and are just a bit silly. I don't think Nintendo is moving the presentation whatsoever. I think the presentation is scheduled, planned, and has been scheduled and planned. And I think the presentation is going to happen still, probably in the first half of January, but not because they decided to move it up, not because there's any concern around DK, as I mentioned in the video yesterday, and as Kit and Krista are reinforcing here. Nintendo just doesn't operate like that. They don't care about that. But we do have another new post from Samus Hunter, which I think is interesting, and we're going to have to talk about it because it has brought a new kind of, I guess, opposite opinion to the table. Here's Samus Hunter's latest, and again, as I read through this to you, keep in mind everything we just discussed. Samus Hunter is now saying connect, chat, 3D Mario, Mario Kart, and then saying nope to all of that. And these are some of the major rumors that have been out there in the wild about the C button on the front of the Switch 2, the right Joy-Con, as well as a 3D Mario and or a Mario Kart in the launch day or launch window or launch year of the game. Now, this is very bonkers to me because A, they're throwing out Connect and Chat, which are two of the best guesses on what that button's for, but that's fine. I guess we don't really know what that C could be for. But saying that Nintendo is not going to have a 3D Mario or Mario Kart is very bizarre. I don't know what they do if they don't have either of those. And it's not like, oh, we're making a risky guess with them launching 3D Mario or Mario Kart. There hasn't been a freaking new Mario Kart since the Wii U. Deluxe and the expansion pack booster pass is great and all, but there has not been a new true Mario Kart for over a decade. There has not been a new 3D Mario for nearly a decade, as it's been almost 8 years since Super Mario Odyssey launched. Yes, they experimented in Bowser's Fury, but you're telling me they're not going to have a 3D Mario, a Mario Kart at all around the launch of this system. And, continuing along with what Kit and Krista said and what I was discussing yesterday, I don't think that we can really believe Samus Hunter all that much on the Switch 2. Have they gotten some things right? Yes. Could they potentially be correct here? I suppose. But I think this is a case of getting one or two things right and then really trying to build a following based on that and feeling the need to comment on everything. I am no longer valuing Samus Hunter as a reliable Switch 2 leaker. They might have good stuff on some upcoming Switch 1 games. They might have from time to time some correct predictions. But based on what they said regarding the presentation before DK, and now based on what they're saying of no 3D Mario and no Mario Kart, I find that very hard to believe. Because what is the game that Nintendo is launching? What are they going to do if they don't have those titles? What is their play? They're going to launch with Metroid Prime 4. They're going to give you what? Because it's not going to be a new Zelda. It's not going to be a new DK. DK is launching in January. They'll have one eventually. Is it going to be Pokemon? Are they launching with Pokemon? Seems like we would have heard or seen something about ZA if that was coming so soon. What are they going to put out there at the start? I've seen some people say that Nintendo doesn't need a major launch title, and I think that's absolutely crazy. They're saying that the power of the Switch and the prolific nature of third parties could give Nintendo plenty for a launch, and launches don't have to have huge titles. The hardware itself will sell plenty by its lonesome. I don't think Nintendo risks that. I think Nintendo absolutely wants to kill this launch. They want to destroy expectations. They want to sell as many as they possibly can, and they're going to need a big game to do that. A big exclusive game that pulls in a wide audience. A big exclusive game that is not Metroid Prime 4, because frankly, that's not big. It's exclusive and it's very fun for hardcore fans. That is not a 10, 20, 30 million seller game. Look how Nintendo leveraged early humongous evergreen sellers to propel the Switch to glory. Mario Kart and Breath of the Wild went on to sell many, many copies. Yes, there were a few duds around launch like ARMS, but there also were such things as Splatoon 2. What's another big sequel that Nintendo can put out at the start of the Switch? Splatoon 4? Don't think so. ARMS 2? Not going to really bring home the bacon. A Mario sports title? That's never been a launch type game. I think 3D Mario or Mario Kart have to be in here. I just do. One of them. I think one of them has to be there at the very start. I'm not even saying launch window. I'm saying launch day. I think one of those two games launches with this system, and I would bet quite a bit on it. But let's go to the Pro Controller. This is very interesting because this comes from a totally new source, and we got to give it a grain of salt because it is coming from a website called Baidu.com. Some people are posting it around Fama boards. It's been posted around. There's been a few things corroborating, but the main details we're going to read through here. Take them with a grain of salt, but this is the first kind of real dive into a Pro Controller rumor. And so I had to absolutely talk about it because I think it's very exciting. I freaking love my Pro Controllers. I love the third-party Pro Controllers. I love the Nintendo Pro Controllers. I love the Special Edition Pro Controllers. I love the Pro Controller. So they say that the Nintendo Switch 2 Pro Controller is produced by their company. I think they may manufacture it because obviously we know that Nintendo is like the maker of the Nintendo Switch 2 Pro Controller. They say it's basically the same as one. The details are mainly the big logo on the front of the controller, and the number 2 is added next to it, which is the same as the logo for the Nintendo Switch 2. And there's currently not much going on. On the back, we have a Nintendo Switch logo, and I believe on the plain black, there's like a little Nintendo Switch right here where there could be some other iconography for a special edition, but it's not front and center. It's not very bold. In fact, Nintendo used this, I think, really nifty kind of see-through plastic, and it's very much like embedded in there. It feels very cool. I think the Pro Controller is like an excellent piece of work. I think it's got great design and great performance, but it seems like they're making the logo bigger and more front and center to help distinguish this from the Switch 1 Pro Controller. They're saying in addition to pure black, there is a new gray black where the shell is black and the joystick body and the top LR buttons are gray. Now this would correlate with Nintendo having a gray Switch 2 console. Because remember, the current leak is that there are two SKUs at launch, a all-white Nintendo Switch 2 and a gray Nintendo Switch 2. So having a black and gray sort of controller will match with the new system and sort of help color coordinate to alert you, besides the screaming logo on the center, that this is a Switch 2 Pro controller. And I think that makes sense. A black controller with gray buttons, or gray LR, gray sticks, feels very basic. The first Pro Controller is also very basic, and I think it was interesting because Nintendo chose to go very bold and vibrant with the Joy-Con, but then very, muted with the Pro Controller, and I think that was a smart play. especially with the Joy-Con being like, oh, this family fun, anyone can use a controller, and then the Pro controller being for pros, even though really it's like just for anybody that wants a good controller. Something about the gray and black just seems like very basic for Nintendo. I know that they've used gray before. I remember when the freaking DS launched and it was a giant clamshell of nonsense. I know Nintendo obviously launched with gray Joy-Con with the Switch 1. They could go gray again, I guess. I'll be a little disappointed if their lead Pro controller is gray and black. That does seem a bit boring and just kind of like, what are the dullest, most muted colors, most generic colors we can do? I think a white Pro controller would be pretty sick, especially to go along if there is a white Switch launch console, but we do know that there's also been a white OLED, and so maybe they want to again try to distinguish from that. Some other features here, though, that are, I would say, bold in a different way, and will have to make you really think and decide if you believe this person. The main change is that a 3.5mm headphone jack is added under the controller. You can plug in headphones to play with the controller. Now, this would be a significant upgrade and something that people really like because, as you know, the Pro controller don't got no jacks. It don't got nothing on it for you to plug in anywhere. It's got a charging port on top, a USB-C charging port. So this would be a nice way to plug in some headphones and to be able to, I guess, whether it's tabletop or whether it's TV, hear your games through your headphones. There is a 3.5mm jack, obviously, on the Switch itself, and I'm sure that will stay. So maybe moving one to the Pro controller is just a further way to support those headphones. I guess, now that I'm thinking about it, it's not really out of the ordinary all that much at all. Nintendo is weird about audio, but they're not saying that a mic could plug in here. That would get me really, like, my radar, then my spidey sense would be, like, really tripping. But just a headphone jack on the controller, okay, fine, sure. Simple, nice, easy way to add a feature to the back of the box and make people buy this controller again. Now, the most interesting piece has been saved for last, and the most controversial, or rather most suspicious, is that there are two buttons under the controller for the middle finger and ring finger. Now, this seems to imply that there's two on each side, similar to paddles on the back of an Xbox Elite controller. As you know, there's currently nothing on the back of a Switch controller, but saying that it's for the middle finger and ring finger, I don't think it's like one and one, like, oh, there's a ring finger button here and a middle finger button here. To me, that sounds like 4 buttons. So already I'm taking issue with the way that they're wording this, 2 buttons, but really it would be 4. Again, it's translated, so we'll let that slide. 4 more buttons on the back of the controller to realistically make this the equivalent of an Elite controller rather than just a Pro controller. Now, to me, that would imply that this controller is going to cost significantly more, and that's not something that is mentioned here, and I suppose that's not something that would be known by the factory if this is indeed coming from a legitimate source. They're saying it's basically the same, but then it has a 3.5mm jack, it's got a new color scheme, and it's got these additional buttons on the back. I think if Nintendo were to do this, they are going to up the charge of the controller. They already know that they can sell the Pro controller for a lot of money. Controllers are already very expensive nowadays, and if they're going to add extra buttons and try to make this a premium Pro controller, an Elite controller, if you will, I think they will charge more. Now, would it be great if they just replaced the current Pro controller with an even more Pro controller that did have 4 extra buttons on the back? That would be great. But now that we know that the Joy-Con button is for a release and an eject versus an additional button versus an additional customization, this feels like maybe it was a hypothesis generated when we thought that was a button on the back. If you thought that Nintendo Switch was going to have 2 extra buttons on the back with the Joy-Con in handheld mode, then it would make sense that you would need these extra buttons while you were using a Pro controller. Now, maybe they're not related at all. I'm just trying to kind of piece things together and see where this could go wrong, because we don't have a picture. We don't have a lot of reference or a lot of proof here. So I want to examine this with very wary eyes. Are they just using this customizable extra button thing to kind of piggyback off the fact that initially, before it was eject, we thought that there were 2 extra pedals on the back of the Joy-Con and on the back of the Switch? Could be, I don't know. It also seems a bit unlike Nintendo to complicate the controller further, to go with 2 extra buttons that in theory would be customizable. I don't think Nintendo is adding extra buttons to anywhere else, so they would have to be just like for alternate control methods. And that does seem like something that Nintendo typically does not dip their toes too much into. But we know Furukawa is much more of a businessman and much more, in my opinion, of someone that is okay merging Nintendo with modern. He's done it already in ways that he's evolved online and their online services. on how he's evolved DLC and some of the decisions Nintendo has made with their hardware and with their software over the last generation. I could see Furukawa pushing for something like this. It just would be a new kind of leaf for Nintendo. I definitely think it could be possible, but anytime I see something that kind of goes against the general order of Nintendo, before Nintendo themselves says, hey, we're bucking the trend, I'm suspicious. I'm more suspicious of this Pro Controller leak than I am of any of the Switch body, Joy-Con body, Switch screen leaks, but I really want to address it because it's the first big one of the sort. We're getting very close to the holiday time. People aren't going to be able to deal with leaks or combat leaks once they're out of the office, and more things are starting to come together. And if we do believe that the Switch 2 presentation is going to be in just a few weeks, it would make sense that the floodgates are just continuing to flood. I think they're already fully open, but we're just getting pores and pores every single day of new material for us to evaluate and get excited about for the Switch 2. Obviously, the more leaks there are, the more you got to be careful. But I do think kind of like the whatever you want to say, the string that broke the camel's back has been broken, and now we are getting at least some authentic leaks. Obviously, we got to evaluate. We got things like Samus Hunter talking about Nintendo switching, and people saying it's probably not true. We've got Samus Hunter saying no 3D Mario or Mario Kart. We've got people showing what the Joy-Con can do or in theory would do. I think we're getting very close. We do need to be judicious in evaluating these. I would love for a Pro Controller to be really pro and really elite. I hope this is true. Maybe we'll get more in the coming days on the Pro Controller. And remember, the initial big leaker who says they have a Switch 2 claims that they are going to post proof on Christmas Day, which is now a week away. So we're going to find out if they really are up to the challenge, if they really have been leading us down the correct path. And I'm sure there'll be much more to discuss as the days and weeks continue leading up to this official announcement. But let me know what you think about a Pro Controller that is more pro with customizable buttons on the back. How do you feel about Samus Hunter saying no 3D Mario and no Mario Kart at launch? And Kid and Krista saying, yeah, Nintendo doesn't operate that way. And what do you think of seeing the magnets in action and seeing those Joy-Con pop off and pop on? Let me know your take in the comments down below, everybody. Hit that like button if you're excited for Switch 2. Until next time, thanks so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. Love you lots. SwitchForce out.